Hey guys, this is Ashley, Lindsey, Ashley, however you want to go about it.
Oh, here we are again.
Here we are again, Sisters Unfiltered.
Episode 8.
Wow.
Continuing that parenting conversation.
Yes.
It's always fun.
Yes.
You know, different stages of life and that kind of thing. But before we get started, do you have any updates from your hair situation? Have you highlighted the girls' hair yet? Or
first of all, let me just say, Ashley and I are feeling not under the weather at all, but the weather is affecting our energy level.
I know. And I'm like, do I want caffeine right now? Do I not?
Yeah. In Austin, it's like, it's always so pretty outside, and it's just not today. It's not rainy.
No.
It's almost like it's going to storm.
Yeah, it does feel like that.
Also, if you see our refrigerator right there behind Ashley that is open.
We didn't forget to leave.
Don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. We have had issues with our refrigerator, so we're having to thaw it out.
Real life, sisters
really
unfiltered.
adulting.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I don't feel like I'm an adult sometimes until stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, cool. So anyways, we are thawing it out and waiting until the guy comes tomorrow, but you have to thaw it out 24 hours ahead of time. So no, there's not food in it. We're actually cleaning it out. So
Dinner out tonight.
That's great.
Yes.
Anyways, all right. So just want to point that out so you're not alarmed. So I've not highlighted the girl's hair yet, but I did use the thinning shears.
That's so scary to me. Like, I feel like I just would be so nervous to use those.
It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary. I'm sure if any of you are hairdressers, do they call people hairdressers anymore? Hairstylists.
Mm-hmm.
You are probably cringing right now because you're like, dear God,
when's the last time you got your hair thinned out?
Well, that's been a long time. But
Yeah,
Abby Kate.
I did used to, like,
all the time.
Regularly, they would thin out my hair. And I even at the moment was like, is this normal to get your hair thinned out like this? And is it okay?
We have a lot of hair.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have a lot of hair, but Abby Kate has she has a ton of hair.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's really hard to even control it and know what to do with it. But it worked out. I
saw a picture. It looked great.
I watched a YouTube video on it, and the scariest part is when you do it, you go down just like it's gonna cut your hair totally off.
Was she scared?
A little bit, because she kept saying, "Mom, you're scaring me because you just keep saying you don't know what you're doing."
Which you're like, I don't.
I kept being like, Abby Kate, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's gonna be fine. She was like, can you quit saying that because you're scaring me? And I was like, okay, I'll quit saying that. But I didn't know what I was doing. But it all worked out.
I asked her, I said, do you feel lighter? And she was like, yes, and get her little head swing. She seemed to love it.
I cut 2 inches off of it, so it worked out. Listen, guys, this is a blunt haircut. This is not anything fancy. I did do some layers in the front, but hey.
I feel though like if Amazon sells it, Lindsey buys it. She's like, oh, I can pierce your ears. I'll give you another piercing.
I do.
Oh, I can thin your hair. I can highlight your hair. We can get a laser hair removal from Amazon.
Yes. Actually is correct on all those things.
I mean, you're not wrong,
I am not.
Maybe you just have to be like the adventurous type to be like, we're going to try it.
Yeah, well, I read a lot of reviews, so that's one thing.
I did
not used to be like that. I did not. I was awful about. Derek was definitely my gauge for all the reviews, and then I don't know. I just started reading reviews, and it's my favorite thing because you really find out if something works or not.
Yeah.
And so I did just buy a laser hair removal thing.
Yeah.
And I do pierce ears.
Each episode, they're finding out more and more do-it-yourself stuff that you do that most people pay people to do.
Our fourth, Ava Mays from China, just asked me to do a double piercing, and I was like, you just need to wait. But really, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it, and I haven't done it yet. But I was like, I'm just gonna double pierce it. Double piercings are a little bit harder than single because of the gap in between.
Yeah.
And so, but I've done it. So
it's crazy.
Ladies, if you want to be adventurous, hey, I'm going to go and tell you this. The piercing does save a ton of money.
Yeah, piercing's expensive.
It is.
I couldn't believe how much it's gotten, how expensive it's gotten.
And I know some of you are probably really care about sanitizing everything. I don't know, because that's where you take your kids tattoo places to get your ears pierced. I don't do that. I take my kids to Claire's.
Me too.
And there's no longer Claire's out here where we live. And so I have to like haul all the way to like some mall.
Yeah.
And so it was $25 for this ear piercing gun. I copied a girl off Instagram that I messaged and asked her about it. It's $80 to $100 to get your daughter's ears pierced at Claire's. And I was like,
or like $250 at
a
tattoo
like a more professional place.
Yeah.
Am I a professional? I am not.
Yeah.
But did I just save us $100? Yes, I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guess what? Abby Kate's ears.
And you have 3 girls. I mean, all of these things, it's like you just think about tripling the amount that it is. Now, Ella, who is from Haiti, so she's black, she, like her hair, I mean, we've been spending more money on her hair since she was in like first grade than I definitely spend on mine. And I tried to do stuff on my own with her hair, and I just could not.
You did wait as long as you could, though.
I did.
I feel like you really pushed it out. But Ella's hair is very tight curls.
Yeah.
So even when her hair is long, I put quotes around that, it's short.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coily.
It's like very coily and like a fro, but it's not like this big, like curly
it's not like
fro.
No,
it's like real tight. Mm-hmm. And so... Yeah. And now y'all are doing this whole new hair regimen.
Yeah.
She was getting braids for a really long time.
Yeah, we did box braids and she was probably in 2nd grade, maybe 1st.
Uh-huh.
And then we'd have Raider come to our house and braid her hair, and we would pay for that, and it was worth every penny to me.
But you guys had to take the braids out.
We take the braids out,
which takes hours.
It takes me hours to do it. Also, I just don't have like tiny fingers. I literally don't know how these people braid like that. Braiders in general are so good at it.
And I'm a good braider, but I've tried braiding Ella's hair, and I can braid like a white girl French braid.
Yeah, exactly.
I can barely get that going in her natural hair.
Yeah. Yeah, so we did box braids forever, and then now we found a place that we love in where we live. It's a little bit far from where we live, but they just have her on this whole, because Ella wants to grow her natural hair, and so it's just like this whole hair regimen, but it just saves my life, honestly. Like, I will pay them any amount of money probably to do her hair. So we have a hair appointment on Saturday, and I'll take her at 9, and I think I probably won't pick her up until like 2. That's how long it takes.
But I really like this place you're going to, because they teach these girls how to do their own hair.
Yeah.
And that's like all over the board, because like we said, like
from what shampoo to use to like how often to use your products,
and all that stuff, right?
All that stuff. Mm-hmm. They don't do relaxers there, but they do have a system that's similar. Again, it's like just learning.
Yeah.
That they do, and then they make it kind of their own thing for their age group. Yeah. So like Ella gets to go, and she's in a chair next to like 3 other teenage girls, and they're all getting their hair done, and it's just kind of honestly an experience. Yeah. And Ella texted me the first time we did it, and she was like, "We need to keep going here. I feel like they really know what they're doing."
And what you guys don't know about Ella is Ella would like to go to like cosmetology school. Like, she is very good at doing hair. Every time she comes over to my house, which Ella and our girls spend a lot of time together, because Anne Marie, my oldest daughter, and Ella are 2 days apart. Yeah. So they are best friends, and they have been forever. Yeah. And I come home at like 9 o'clock at night, and all my girls' hair, all 3 of them, straightened. It looks so good.
She got this new hair dryer brush, and honestly, I feel like I get my own blowout. Like, I wash my hair, and then she's like, "I'll blow dry your hair." It is so relaxing.
Oh, I would love it. You're like, okay.
I'm like, what? I'm like, Ella, you don't have to, but I mean, if you want to. She's like, I do. And she takes so much time doing it. I mean, she's only in 8th grade, but she's like, I'm going to cosmetology school for sure. I'm like, you know what? I'm so glad you have a plan.
She's so good at that stuff.
Yeah, so those are the hair situations going on at both of our houses. A little bit different.
A lot different. A lot different. But yes, there's a lot of hair and straightening and all the things. Yes. So, and we're only in middle school.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I know. So we are continuing. Our last episode, we talked about creating, a culture in your home before your baby comes. Yeah. We talked about pregnancy a little bit. And we just talk about different seasons of life and parenting. There's just different seasons for the stages that your kids go through. Mm-hmm. And there's like that 0 to 5 stage, which is babies into preschool. Then you have that stage of like elementary to middle school. And then you have middle school and high school, and then you have young adults. And all those stages are so different. And I think a lot of times we catch ourselves sometimes parenting in the wrong season, which can be very frustrating as the parent and for the child, I think. But today we just kind of want to tackle that 0 to 5, that like baby comes into this world to 5. Do you like remember those days?
Yeah, for sure I remember those days.
Because what stages are you in right now as a parent?
I'm in like the ages of our kids.
Yeah, like the stages that we just talked about.
Oh,
you're really in the middle high school stage.
Yeah, middle high school.
So really, all 5 of your kids are kind of in the same stage, which is great. Same season, same season of life.
Yeah, my kids are all from my oldest to my youngest 6 years apart total.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of kids in a very small window.
Yeah.
Which is great. Most of the time. I would say there's times where that can be a little hard, but it's great because like we go through phases together.
Yeah.
Not very often do I have them in different phases.
Yeah.
Does
like
that
you're
make sense?
not like you don't have 2 in one season and 3 in the other.
Most of the time
can be
I don't.
difficult.
Yeah. At most it's only been 2 different seasons,
Yeah.
2 different whatever phases. And so I just feel like that. Yeah, that's what I'm in. Sorry, I was just thinking, processing that. But I think that I'm definitely in that middle high school. I don't have adult kids, but I'm on the verge. Do you consider adult like once they go to college, right? Yeah. So I'm on the verge of that. I'm about to enter that world.
Yes. Yeah.
And Ashley, you have.
Yeah. So middle school, high school, definitely in that season. Have been in that season for a while.
I feel like you're kind of.
Yeah, and
a little phasing out.
The scales have tipped for sure because I have 3 that are in that adult child.
Yeah.
Like, kind of that relationship with your kids after they're adults.
Isn't it weird though that like once you hit the adult, that's it forever until you die?
I mean, it is. Well, that's the interesting thing. You think that it is, but it isn't.
Because
you mean that they're just like adults forever?
Yeah, they're adults until you die, but really then they're in their own seasons. It starts becoming that. It's almost like just that starts over.
Yeah, and
they get married, then they have babies, and
and maybe if you have a good relationship, they're asking you for help.
That's
in
true.
The seasons that they're in.
That's true. I haven't thought about that. Huh.
But we're gonna kind of think back and go back to that 0 to 5 window and season of life. But do you remember that?
I think that I remember that. And I think that that, and I might have touched on this in the last episode, or the episode about, I don't even know what we called that episode, but about when you start your family and everything. But I think that age, I'm just trying to compare this to all phases of life so far that I've experienced with my kids. I feel like that age, it is so different from when your oldest is a newborn, your first, versus your second, third, and fourth, and fifth, or whatever you want to say.
I think you're
oldest
different.
to last.
Yeah, I think you're different.
Right? And so it's almost like it's just the way you feel, the way you are, the way you're figuring things out. And it is similar when you have middle schoolers or high schoolers and you're going into this new season.
Yeah.
Not as extreme to me, though. It doesn't feel as extreme.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Definitely. For sure. And I think especially with your first, everything's so new and you're learning and you're trying to figure things out and you do relax a little bit with each one that comes and you change some things, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think that with every season, the biggest thing is probably keeping the big picture in mind.
Yeah.
So even when you have that newborn, what is the big picture here of the decisions that you're making daily that are going to end up being big later on? Because your goal is what? You're raising kids to go out into the world to be strong, independent. Love for us is love Jesus. Be good people, hardworking, all the things. And so, but when they're little and they're just like a tiny baby, it's kind of sometimes hard to keep that. I don't think
most. I would dare to say not a lot of people have that big picture in mind when they're babies.
Yeah.
I think they think
it's just going to happen.
I think that when they're babies, they just think they're so innocent, they're so little, they don't know any different. I just need to cuddle them and give them whatever they want all the time. And then eventually we will go into that time of having to teach them life lessons.
Yeah.
But in most people, I would have to say, we should take a poll at some point when we actually have people who will answer our poll. Who feels like they have the big picture in mind when they have their first newborn.
Yeah.
Not even their second, third, or fourth, or fifth, if you even have that many kids. But, because I think that ultimately people just they're not thriving during that time.
Yeah.
They're surviving.
Just because of lack of sleep.
Just because of lack of sleep and emotions and trying to figure it out. They are surviving, they're not thriving.
And I think a lot of times they're letting the baby lead the way.
Well, and
it doesn't, I don't think necessarily have to be that way. Now, just know, as we talk about babies and we talk about preschoolers and we go into all these seasons of life, that like we definitely had a way that we raised our kids and did things, and not everybody's going to do that. And that's okay. Like, we all have to own the way that we decide to parent. It's such a gift. Your children are such a gift, and God's given them to you for you to be responsible for them. And so it's okay if we do things different, and hopefully we don't get canceled by some of the things we say today.
Yeah. I think that
on this episode.
I think that babies, especially babies, I think that it's this like strange little gray area maybe in a way for people. But I think that there are some things as your kids get older that you do need to raise them a certain kind of
and I think
with a certain thing in mind.
Yeah, and I think if you're not thinking about that, that comes before you know it, right? Like, they're so sweet and innocent, they are, and they can't do anything for themselves, so you have to do everything for them. But then comes the time at, 12 months, 18 months, they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? And so it comes fast. And so to switch gears really fast is sometimes hard if we're not really being intentional about thinking about it.
You're very kind. I think way before 12 months, so they know what they're doing.
Well, no, I'm just saying because they start getting their personality.
They know.
Everything.
These are babies. They know what they're doing. They know exactly. They're just little babies. They're little humans. They come out little sinners. They know they're selfish little babies, and they will continue being selfish until we teach them not to be selfish. Yeah. That's just how they are. And they're sweet, absolutely, and adorable, but they will make your life a living hell if you let them. And that is just the truth.
Yeah.
And I hate it because you want to look at them and think like, oh my gosh, but it's the truth. And I also do think there's circumstances that can change some of the way that we did things. And that's, maybe another conversation for another day, but I do understand. I guess what I'm saying is we're not in everyone's shoes in some ways, but I will say this. What we did worked for 10 different kids with 10 different personalities.
Yeah.
So to me, we got to get out of this whole, my child and their personality doesn't handle punishment well, so therefore we can't punish him. And I'm like,
yeah. I was thinking about this today on my walk because I knew that we were talking about this, and because it is counterculture, I think, right now, to even have any type of boundaries or to say no. There's this whole movement where there's a parenting movement that's like, we're not going to use the word no. And so when you say no, there is we do say no, we do have boundaries, we do have rules, we do have these kind of things, people kind of get offended, that you have that for your kids and you don't really listen to their emotions or whatever. But the thing is that it's our responsibility to raise these kids. And I love this quote, and I think that it's strong. And people might get offended by it, but it says, when a child disobeys, they are in sin, but when a parent allows it, they are in sin.
I love that.
And I just am when you do think about it that way, it is your responsibility. And I know, so let's start with newborns so we can kind of keep going in all of this direction. My whole point was when you said about, it's their personality, making excuses for things, is we can do that forever until the time they are adults. We can do it for ourselves, but I think we all are adults. We're all mature. We know that our personalities can have good and bad, strong and weak, can be unhealthy and healthy, and it's no excuse to just be that's just how I am, or that's just how my kids are.
No, and also as a Christ follower, we are never arriving until we get to heaven. Therefore, to plot down and say that's my personality is literally unacceptable, in my opinion. Yeah. Also, when someone wrongs your child, are you going to give that person grace because it's just their personality?
Oh, right. When you turn the tables.
When you turn the tables around and you say, well, that's just my kid's personality.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Well, then that's just that kid's personality who's a bully.
Yeah. I remember one of our friends, one time Tyler was like a toddler or whatever, and his little sweet friend bit him in the face. And my friend, the mom, was like, oh, she's just tired. And I'm like, what if I just beat you in the face when I'm tired? Like, and listen, on the other side of that, my kids have done things to other kids, by the way. But here's the thing, like, even when our kids make bad choices, you still have to, and you know what? They might not get what you're trying to get them to get for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's the whole verse, to train a child in the way they should go, and they will not depart from it. That might take a long time.
Yeah.
But it is still your responsibility as a parent to do that.
For sure.
You know, to teach them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to, because personalities, I personally think, start showing up very early in newborns.
They do. I mean, God made us all so different. He gave us personalities and tendencies, and I mean, you're, as a parent, you see that, and especially if you have more than one kid, you definitely see that.
Yeah, I love it how people are so like, the baby in my womb is so active. You can already tell, da 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 da. And then when they come out, all of a sudden, I mean, you can't say their baby's active, and you know, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's like you're so like saying these things over your baby, and then all of a sudden, when it becomes your reality, you don't want anybody to talk to you about your baby or who they do. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, the bottom line is that God says no to us.
Yeah.
And shuts the door on things, right? God guides us all the time. How are we going to teach our kids those things if we aren't saying no to them and shutting the door and guiding them? How are we going to teach them to listen to the Lord? And I believe it starts as a baby. So when do you think that starts? Like, are we going through that first?
Yeah. So okay, so let's talk about babies, like newborns. A lot of people, we were big, we already said this on another episode, we were big baby-wise people. That's a very kind of structured schedule for your kids. I cared so much about sleep. I was like wanting my babies on a schedule as soon as I could get them on one, and Baby-Wise helped me do that.
Yeah.
So we were big into routines with their babies, and like Tyler, my first, was just really such a perfect baby. He was born and just so sweet, and so Wade used to say like he was baby Jesus because he was so good, and he slept through the night pretty easily. It didn't take a lot for me to do that. Now I've had other kids that it took a little bit more just time and effort to get them to do that. But for our babies, especially newborns, we cared about them sleeping, so we had them on schedules and. That pretty right.
And it's a pretty proven fact that if you want your baby to sleep through the night quickly, get them on a good schedule during the day.
Yeah.
That is a lot of effort on your end.
Well, it takes sacrifice at first,
yes,
so that you have the freedom later.
Yes.
So that's my big thing too with newborns. It's like sacrifice that time early.
Yeah.
And you're home a lot, and you are doing what you need to do to get that baby on a schedule. But guess what? You are gonna have the reward later on.
Yes. So what I like about the way we did things is because we were home a lot with them for the first few months, we would, and y'all, I'm even talking down to baby number 4. Like, first few months, you're home.
Yeah.
And not all day, but you're home because you want to keep them on your schedule. Probably one of my favorite things, besides the fact that our kids slept through the night very early. So what is early? I had kids sleeping by 6 weeks old. I had them sleeping through the whole entire night by 6 weeks old. Yeah. By 12 weeks old, 12 hours a night. They might have already been doing that. Yeah. And so but my second favorite thing to that was because we kept them on a schedule. When you get to a certain point, you know if they're crying, what it's about.
Yes.
Because they are so scheduled.
Yes.
So you're like, oh, it's time for their nap. You know, they're sleepy.
Yeah,
they're
wasn't
hungry.
A lot of guessing because you had that schedule down, and the baby kind of reacted from the schedule.
That's right.
Yeah.
You just always knew what was going on, even though the baby couldn't communicate it, obviously, in speaking to you. But you just knew because they were so scheduled. And with them being so scheduled, it does take away a little bit of flexibility for a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
And like my babies were not big nappers anywhere but home for a long time.
In their beds.
Yeah. Like we'd never, I'd never rocked my babies to sleep.
Yeah.
They would go to bed on their own, put them down. They're awake from a very early age. Yeah. When they're awake, you put them down. Like there was a whole thing about not holding them all the time.
Yeah. So, and here's, I think people would be like, that sounds so regimented, that sounds so extreme. And maybe for some people it is. And that's okay. If that's not you. I really don't care. It's not my baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We like genuinely don't care. This is not like a right or wrong.
No, absolutely not. But also for scheduling, one thing I'll say is that it helped my husband and I have time together.
Yeah.
When your baby's leading the way and it's just like whatever the baby demands at the time. And again, you kind of start this habit of that being the thing instead of time with your husband. But when they were on a schedule, you knew what time they were going to bed and when they were getting up, and you could schedule your time, with your husband together. And even when you have more kids, it, to me, in my mind, and maybe it's just a personality thing, I don't know, but it just worked. It just worked for our home. It worked for just things going smoothly. Also having big families, it keeps things a lot less chaotic.
It does.
And so those are reasonings. And again, but my number one reason, truth be told, was I needed to sleep.
Yeah, me too.
100%.
To be able to function, I needed to sleep. So
were you into I know the answer to this, but like self-soothing for babies, like cried out? You kind of mentioned that because you didn't really rock.
Yeah,
you weren't a big
for sure.
rocking them to sleep.
For sure. We are cried out. And when we say these things, we're not saying shut your kid in a room, let them scream their head off for who knows how long, never go in there. That's not it. There is some flexibility with our method. It's not even our method, it's Baby Wise's method. There was flexibility with those methods. It was just...
And of course, some people are crazy and they are extreme.
And that is not right either,
No.
because that's too much on the other end of it. But yeah, for sure, self-soothing, cry it out. We would go in there I feel like I saw a lot of habits in babies. They create these habits. It's insane how quickly they can start waking up in the middle of the night for no reason after they've been sleeping through the night. And it's like, why are they waking up? 3 nights in a row, they're waking up in the middle of the night. Then we have to figure out, okay, now we're going to have to cry it out. Now we have to figure things out,
Yeah.
And I think really one thing we did too was I nursed, you nursed most of your kids. And I understand that people are going to not like this comment, and everybody is different. But I'm a big fan of being on a schedule with nursing. I cannot physically sit down and nurse on demand. One, I don't really think my baby needs to eat as much as these babies are eating these days, okay? 2, you're their pacifier.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what's going on. They can't fall asleep unless they're nursing.
Yeah.
Or a bottle. You can say a bottle too. And 3, I don't care how tiny your baby is, they don't need that many calories. They really don't.
Yeah.
And so if you want to feed them more because they were like little babies, preemies, whatever, feed them in smaller increments, right? But you teaching a baby that I'm not going to whip out a bottle or nurse you every time you're crying is, okay, we're right off the bat teaching them, you don't run this. The baby has to realize, I'm not in charge. I never looked at it that way, but that's really ultimately what you're saying is I'm the adult and I know what's better for you.
Yeah. And I think too, you have this intuitiveness in you as a mom and a dad to know when your baby is hungry and when your baby needs to be changed and when your baby might be just teething or going through a growth spurt or whatever. And I just think there is just some things that, because you have to be more intentional and it's harder, we sometimes default to not wanting to do it because it takes a little bit more effort.
Yes. And if that's the case, go ahead and buckle up, my friend, because that is literally, you really need to be intentional for the rest of that child's life.
What would you say to someone that right now is probably you guys sound so mean and not loving or caring? And I actually think it is loving and caring.
It is. It is. And kids like boundaries. They like schedules. They thrive off of that. I would say you do you, boo.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say we're not being mean, and we loved our babies, but this is something that I have found, again, all different personalities, all different babies, all different kids has worked.
Yeah.
And my kids are thriving, and they were thriving then. And I was thriving because I could keep a solid mental state.
Yeah.
And honestly, also, I want to touch on this real quick because we probably need to move to like an older
Preschool.
phase.
Yeah.
But real quick is we got to work on not making decisions off of fear. I think a lot of decisions as a new mom or a mom of a newborn, whether that's your first, second, third, whatever, I think we need to be real careful because I think so many times, because the enemy knows that we're tired and our hormones are nuts, he knows when to come and whisper some things in our ears. And then if we feed that, we start basing everything off of fear. And guys, that's not how God works. I was actually just telling my daughter this last night. God doesn't move you. He doesn't through fear. He doesn't move you through fear. And so, and I hope that some of you, most of you, can find a time where the Lord moved you to do something and you didn't have fear, but you look back and you think, I should have had fear, but I didn't, because that's not how God did it.
Well, that's what supernatural peace is.
Yes, and he worked it out. And I have a whole story about my daughter, Abby Kate, getting very sick before she was 28 days old, and we had to take her to the ER, and she ended up being in the hospital for a few days. But the point is a doctor literally said, had you not brought her in, she could have died. But I was not moved through fear. It was a very, exactly what you just said, supernatural thing where
and supernatural peace doesn't mean you don't do anything.
No.
It's while you're doing it, and maybe the circumstances around you are crazy, but you have this like peace about you. You're not like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah,
and
it's
you just
weird.
know.
It's like this weird, like robotic thing. I don't know how to explain it, but like I was told to take her to the ER. I'm not a big ER person. No, I mean, I'm not against ERs. I'm just saying, like, I don't go a lot because I feel like they cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. And all of a sudden I just had this peace come over me that was like, you need to take her to the ER. I wasn't scared. And I just looked at my husband and I said, hey, I think we probably should take her to the ER.
Yeah.
And so we did. And we didn't know that she could have gone septic and died. So with saying that, if God works that way, the way that we know it's not God speaking to us is when we can recognize it as fear and say, no, this is not the way the Lord works. But when we have new babies, for whatever reason, a lot of things are on fear. And it might be because you've seen other people go through something bad.
Well, and I think you've never loved something so much in your whole life.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. And I think experiences are things you're reading. But you have to remember, you are listening to the Lord, and you can base things off of wisdom and adult knowledge. You don't base things off knowledge all the time. I'm just saying you are the adult. Anyway, so we can move on to preschool.
More than you're the adult, you're their parent.
Yeah.
And God's giving you everything, all the tools you need to raise that kid.
And it's okay to say, I'm the adult. I know that they do not need to eat right now.
Yeah.
I'm the adult. I know that what they need is a nap.
And what Lindsey said, this doesn't just stop when they're babies. No, let's go into like the toddler years. And I think the goal of 0 to 5, more like toddler to 5, is that your kids listen to what you say.
Yeah.
First time obedience.
Yes, absolutely.
It is the goal.
Yes.
Right?
So
this is the foundation
yes.
for your kids to listen to what you say, right?
Yeah. I love the analogy that a pastor made about first time obedience. So if you guys want to listen to this, it's so good. He said, I realize that when you count to 3 and you tell your kid, come here right now, or get out, let's say, get out of the street. You're saying, when I count to 3, get out of the street right now. 1, don't get out of the street. 2, don't get out of the street. 3, you better get out of the street.
Right.
That is literally what you're telling them when you count, or when you give them an option to decide if they want to come to you. You, as a parent, are saying to them, you don't actually have to listen to me right now. But when I get to the point where you have to listen, you better listen.
Yeah.
That's
confusing.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, it's really confusing.
And so I think that starts pretty early on, actually.
I don't know about you, but for me, people always are like, terrible twos. And I'm like, I think 3 is probably I call them 3 natures.
It's 3 natures.
They're like, it's a hard age. They're super independent or want to be independent, yet don't have the maturity to be. But like, you know, I do think once your kids can start like crawling and walking and that sort of thing, they are going to try to test the boundaries, right? They're going to want to, they're curious, which is great. I think this, you know, that 0 to 5 is such a foundation for learning about all kinds of things, learning about relationships, learning to listen to their parents, learning about God even. You know, they're just so open and curious and they're so stinking cute. And yet it is a great opportunity for us as parents to teach our kids and lay that foundation for them in 0 to 5.
Yeah.
You know, I, for Lindsey and I think that my mom might have taught us this. I was trying to think about this too earlier. I did not put up things in my house, like accessories and stuff when my kids started crawling and walking, the things I didn't want them to break or whatever. My goal was to teach them to not touch those things because I said, don't touch those things.
Yeah.
Right? And so sometimes, like, I think we get that confused a little bit. Like, oh, we probably shouldn't tell them. Like, it's fine. They're just, you know, they're just toddlers.
And it's just going to happen. So let's gate off everything.
And it might happen, for sure.
It will happen.
Yeah.
It will happen. And it will happen whether or not you gate off things or you do it. I didn't do anything like that. But I will never forget when I had Micah. Was it Micah? I think it was. And Parker was such a good kid. Baby, but for whatever reason I had to have my bowls. We lived in a rental house and I'd have my glass bowls like down. Like we didn't have upper cabinets or something.
Yeah.
That boy took full advantage while I was nursing Micah, and he would go into my kitchen and take every glass bowl out. And I did have to put like locks on my cabinets.
Yeah.
Because he was 21 months old. I mean, my boys were 21 months apart, so he was still so little, although I did say no. But yes, I totally agree with you that
I think the first time Tyler got in trouble was because he used to climb up on this trash can and the trash can just constantly kept falling over. And when I say in trouble, I remember that was like such a vivid memory for me to have to teach him. There was nowhere else for the trash can to go first. And to teach him that you can't crawl up on the trash can because it falls over and all the trash falls out. And like, I remember that was like, I think his first lesson ever, like just lesson of like knowing that that's something that we just can't do, you know?
Yeah. That happened with Anne Marie when she was little. She hit me in the face. Little. I mean like 1.
Yeah.
And Derek was like, no, man. And she got so sad. She was like, ooh. And I was like, good. There's certain things that we do have to be really firm on, and hitting mom is one of them. I mean, we're teaching them now. You do not hit adults. You don't hit, period, but you most certainly do not hit your parents. And even though it came from a playful, innocent, didn't really know, it was like Derek made a point to be like, hey, you're gonna know that is absolutely unacceptable.
Because again, it's just like what I said before. If we allow them to hit when they're 1, that 3 and 5-year-old and they're going to school and they're hitting kids comes real fast.
And it does happen. I think we need to be very careful not to think they won't do this when they're older. They will. And I don't know how else you get them to stop besides having immediate consequences.
Yeah, I think too, like a big thing in this season is to set clear expectations and be consistent.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're little. So it's the most simple, like as long as you can say things simply and be very consistent. They are smart, by the way.
Yeah, they are.
So smart.
They're
Babies,
so smart.
Toddlers, kids, so smart. And they can do these things. And again, I think it goes back to like being diligent and being intentional in your parenting.
Yes.
Because guess what? It's so much easier to not be.
Oh yeah, it is. But then again, my thing with kids in general, guys, is do you want to enjoy your kids or do you not?
Yeah.
And not disciplining or lack of discipline. Here's what happens is, first, no one outside your home enjoys your kids.
That's right.
Okay? No one else wants to be around your kids. They might not tell you this.
Yeah.
Watch closely. People start not wanting to babysit your kids.
Yeah.
They start not wanting to be around you as a family. If you are getting only asked to go out as couples all the time, that might be a red flag, okay? Not all the time, but when your kids are little, I think when your kids get older and you can go with your kids staying at home by themselves, that's different. But when your kids are little and you're only getting asked to go out as couples, that usually is a sign. Okay, so at first it starts where no one outside your home is liking your kids. Then what happens is you start to not like your kids. Yeah. You start to not want to be around your kids. And that is real. I've seen it time and time again. And then what happens is you've gone all these years without disciplining them. And now you don't want to be around your kids. No one else wants to be around kids. And then what do? Can you start disciplining them then? You can. But guys, the older your kids get,
the harder
it is so much harder.
Yeah.
And I used to say this about crying it out. Go ahead and let your 4-week-old, 5-week-old cry it out. Because if you wait another month, they will cry twice as long. They just will. I mean, that's just a proven fact. Yeah. Okay? So the older they get, the smarter they get, the more aware they are of things. So I think that's why we cared so much about go ahead and now we're going to discipline our kids when they're little so that we can enjoy them when they're older.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen overnight either. Let me just go and tell you. We are from Alabama, so and my husband's from Georgia, Jeremy's from Texas. We really are big proponents of yes ma'am and no ma'am and yes sir and no sir. Right. We don't see that very much here in Austin, Texas, but that is a big thing for us. Yeah. Our kids will say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, okay? Let me tell you how many years it takes to get them.
Train them.
To do this. Yeah. Guys, we start from when they're walking. Mm-hmm. We start right off the bat when they can walk. They are talking sometimes before they're walking. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. What'd you say? Okay, fast forward 5 more years. Then they're 5. What did you say? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Hey, by the way, you still have to tell your teachers this. Yeah. Oh, I have to tell my teachers this? I thought it was just you and mom. None of my friends do. Okay, fast forward till they're 10. Yeah, we're still working on it. Mm-hmm. Okay? Guess what? Still working on it. Yeah. I mean, my kids, for the most part, now all naturally say it. But my whole point in saying that is even disciplining, it's not a one and done. No. It's a forever. Yeah. Even to this day, there's times where I have to say, hey, now that my kids are in middle school and high school, there are sometimes where they kind of forget that they have to do what we say right off the bat. Yeah. And I feel like I just had this conversation with one of my girls.
I just had this conversation yesterday with my senior high school.
You're like saying no names.
Just about something.
But you're like, hey.
Where I was like, if I ask you to do it, I expect you to do it right then. I ask you.
Yeah, I just had this conversation. Like, we're not saying wait until you feel ready to do this. Like, what we taught you when you were little has not changed because you're a little older now. Yeah. So my whole thing is, yes, it is intentionality. Yes, it is you going before them and having a plan with your husband. And yes, sometimes it is you have let it go. You have let your kid, let's say, pitch fits for a little bit. Even if you've been a good parent, I'm not saying you're a bad parent if you haven't done that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying even if you have been on your kids. Yeah. There was a time where my 4-year-old, the youngest, I won't say her name, literally would not quit falling on the floor pitching fits. I think what happened was we were too loose on her because she was the youngest and we had a lot of other things going on. And I will never forget the time where I was like, oh my gosh. And y'all, anybody could have said the style of discipline that we had for these kids made her worse when we would discipline her. It didn't matter. At that point, I knew my child is going to be a brat if I don't do this now. Yeah. And so I always say it's like you put your football helmet on and you just bear down. You're like, okay, I'm doing it.
There are going to be things like that. I think times when you back off, when you're not paying attention, and then you're going to have a time where you say, okay, we're going to have a come to Jesus moment.
That's right.
Because we are not going to keep doing this.
It's like boot camp. It's kids like, boot camp. And you're like, all right, we're reining it in. We're back on it. Yes. And so you got to give yourself grace for that. Yeah. But then you also can't you can't ignore things and as if it's not happening. And I say all that because do you want other people to enjoy your kids? And do you want to enjoy your kids?
I know. I think the preschool years, so I had 4 boys right in a row. So 6 and under boys, 4 boys. Yeah. It was crazy. Just a crazy time. I was exhausted. They have so much energy. They did not stop unless they were asleep. And then I have different personalities. Tyler was pretty easy. He's just like a cautious kind of kid, the oldest. And so he was pretty easy. And then I have Blake and Sam, and they were just flat out crazy.
They did.
Okay,
They
just
did so many.
wow.
They stamped on the wall.
But just
they did
because
everything.
they were like that didn't mean we stopped disciplining them or them having consequences when they would do the crazy things. Now, did they do those crazy things for a long time? They did, okay? They did.
Yeah.
But they still got in trouble. We still got onto them. But I remember we had Sam. He is my third. He kept us on our toes the most, all parenting, okay? And big personality. He's one of those people they're going to do amazing things in the world, but you got to direct them in the right way.
For sure.
And I used to tell him, you got to use your superpowers for good. You got to use your powers for good, not evil. But when he was about 4, we were like that. I was getting embarrassed when we would go out because he would do things that were so crazy.
Yeah.
And he was very impulsive. There's a great word. Very impulsive as a preschooler and even as he got older. But as a preschooler, and this is what my husband and I, we were like, oh my gosh, we have to do something. Like, we're embarrassed by him. He is acting crazy. We can't get a hold of what's going on with him. And so we found this book, and I highly recommend it, called New Kid by Friday. And it's Kevin Leman, who I love. I think he's a great person to go to. I mean, I think the Bible, number one, and then there's some things like Power of a Praying Parent is a book that I really rely on in parenting. And then New Kid by Friday, a friend had told me about it. She probably told me about it because she was like, Sam's needs some help, And it was like we had to have boot camp with Sam. Y'all, it was so hard. We read the book in like literally like a day. And it was just the hardest thing, but I'm telling you, slowly but surely, it started helping. He was better in public, better around friends, a little bit less impulsive. Now, that is a little bit his personality, and we kind of had to direct him all along the way.
Yeah.
Blake as well. And, they're the kind of kids that we say, no unnecessary risk, because they're adventurous kids. But that kind of goes through even into discipline and not making great choices and things like that. But you're going to have times, and those preschool years is the best time to do that if you need to lay down the law about something.
Is New Kid by Friday before?
Yeah, they do preschool. I mean, Sam was like 4, I remember.
Okay.
It's a lot of natural consequences, like the choices they make.
Yeah, it creeps your kids out. I will never forget. They came down to my house, and they were like, my mom is doing this weird thing. And if you read it, you'll know the method. But
it was a big not react, but just respond. Like, you're not reacting to something, you're responding to something, which kept things a little bit calmer in your house, not as much chaos, not as much yelling.
I think it's a little harder for that book though when they're at 2.
Oh yeah. But
because
he was 4.
He
so
was
that's
4.
Still,
yeah,
preschool.
because 2-year-olds need immediate consequence.
Yeah,
like you can't wait until. But that book, it was a little bit more when they're a little older, like 4, 5. Yeah, because then they don't have to have an immediate consequence right there. But the way it worked was it was. Yeah, I remember. I think it really worked with your kids.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. Yeah. I think that you have to sometimes even. That's still lined up with your belief on parenting and discipline, but it was a little bit of a different method because you guys had 2 boys that had a little bit of a different personality than the older one.
That's right.
And I think sometimes we have to go that route too.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
And God helps us. I literally,
You're right.
times where someone has told me about a book and I read it. A friend has given me a suggestion because they've experienced before. I think God sends those things your way when you're struggling as a parent with your kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
And that was such a defining moment with Sam for sure when he was really struggling as a preschooler. Also, your kids are about to go to school. I mean, some of you might homeschool, but my kids all went to school and some to preschool, some didn't go to preschool. But I want them to behave at preschool. I want them to behave at school. And I really felt like that started in our home.
It does.
For them to do that.
It does. I think sometimes, again, people think that what happens in your home is not going to happen outside of your home. But I'm going to go and tell you right now, it does. It will spill over. It will start becoming, I've always had a big rule about my kids being nice to each other. They're not always nice to each other. But I will intervene if they're not, because I believe that starts in your home and then it starts happening with their friends. Mm-hmm. If they're mean to their siblings, truly, they start becoming a jerk to their friends and not nice to their friends. And So to me, you have to fix what's going on in the home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And there are times where I do think I've seen it, where kids can be disrespectful to their parents sometimes, but they're not like that to other adults. So I do think that happens, but I'm not talking about that as much as and I think that needs to stop in your home too. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that there are a lot of times we just tend to make up a lot of excuses why we shouldn't have to discipline our children or get them on a schedule or give them boundaries from 0 to 5. Yeah. We think
because they're little, because they're so
they
cute.
Don't know any better.
Yeah.
They didn't mean to do that. Yeah. And then at 5 years old, all of a sudden, poof, they're going to school, or you're homeschooling them and you want them to follow rules, but they don't know how to follow rules.
That's right.
Or you need them to go to daycare and they're biting every kid around them, and now daycares are kicking them out, and you're like, I don't know what to do. But I'm like, yeah, well, that probably was happening in the home or something. Yeah. And it's like, you got to figure these things out. Yeah. And I don't know how else you do it besides discipline and boundaries.
Yeah. And I think it's important just in that 0 to 5 to remember some things we've said. One, that you are the parent. That's in every season.
Yes.
That you are the parent. And also God is there to help you raise your kids and to know what to do during that time. Yeah. And what a great opportunity to lay a foundation of the kid you want that kid to be, and think of them. You know, I used to think about this, like we held 2 of our kids back in school, but I thought, okay, I don't need to look at them right now. I need to see, what are they going to be like when they're 17? Mm-hmm. What does this play out like when they're 17? What does this play out like when they leave home? What does this play out like in a friend group? What does this play out like? And like, we do have to think about those things even when they're little, because it's going to come and it's going to affect their life in that way.
It will.
You know?
It will. It's long term.
Yeah.
What you're doing by going ahead and creating this environment of, you don't rule our household as a child or a baby, is you're go ahead and you're preparing them for life, really. And it's so good for them. And they actually, I think, thrive in that.
Yes. Oh, well, and I mean, you still have a relationship with your child. Yes. You might have a better relationship with them.
You do.
Because they know the roles in the family.
Yeah.
You know, and you have a loving relationship with them, and you enjoy them, and they enjoy being with you, and it just sets a tone in your home, I think, when everyone is on the same page.
And of course, just side note here, anything can be imbalanced and it's not healthy. So you can't be so strict where your kids feel like they do everything wrong, and you can't be so relaxed where they have so much grace where they think they're, you know, God's,
they can do whatever
they want. Yeah. So I just think you've got to remember some balance. But I agree with you that don't live in fear that you're not doing things right. Don't live in fear that your kids are going to be damaged or hurt or whatever it is. Trust the Lord that He'll let you know, the Holy Spirit will let you know if there's anything you need to do different, or if you need to read a book, or you need to take them to the doctor for whatever reason. But also remember that God is a God of order, not chaos. Yeah. God wants your home to be a place of peace and joy. And if your kids are ruling your home, I can go ahead and tell you that's not happening.
Yeah.
Your home is chaotic. It's going to be messy. It's going to be strife. It's you and your husband are going to be at each other because your kids are just constantly at that age 0 to 5. It's like need. They need you. They need you. They don't stop crying. They don't stop wanting. And that doesn't go away on its own, guys. Yeah. And they are kind of born into the world like that. I do think some babies are easier than others. Yeah. And some toddlers are going to be easier than others. But ultimately, I think that, I think it's a really positive thing to go ahead and be thinking this way.
Yeah. So I do too. Well, I think we're out of time.
We're out of time.
We could talk about this forever.
We could talk about this for a while.
So, I think you have the question of the week this week.
I have the question of the week this week. I would say, what is your favorite product right now? I'm going to say cleaning product, though.
Oh, cleaning product. Oh, for sure. Okay, so my favorite cleaning product I got from you and our friend, Robin, is the Thieves Spray. Is it what you're going to say? Yeah. But it's new to me. I feel like you've been doing it for a while, and I just didn't catch on or not think about doing it. But it's like the Thieves oil and just the spray bottle, and it just smells so good, and it cleans everything up so great. I love it.
And this is a big deal for us, ladies and gentlemen, because we are not essential oils girls.
Yeah.
And no shame in your game, guys, but we're just not.
I probably just don't know what I'm doing when it comes to essential oils at all.
For sure. I don't either.
Yeah.
And I just haven't ventured down that. But I love, love, love this Thieves oil spray. And it saves you so much money, actually. And it smells so good. And you can spray it on like anything. And it is amazing.
It's probably my favorite cleaning product.
I would have to agree. I mean, I use it on everything.
Yeah.
So I would have to say the same thing as you.
That's your favorite?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
I don't know. I will say this isn't cleaning, but it kind of is.
You're the one that made the cleaning rule.
No, I know. The cleaning question?
Yeah, but that said it had to be cleaning.
No, I know. No.
Okay.
This is cleaning.
Okay.
But it's not like spray. I love Buff City soap.
Oh, yeah.
Laundry detergent.
Yeah, it's great.
So I am on that kick right now. And I will tell you this really quick. I might do an Instagram story on this on my personal account. But I actually stole this from someone else, an influencer. And, but I bought my own bottles. She got like is that like a Lazy Susan that moves?
Oh, yeah.
Like a cute,
Yeah.
round Lazy Susan. I just happen to have one that I got that I love that I'm going to use it for like decorative, like when people come over.
Yeah.
But right now I'm not using it for that. And I got the cutest glass jars for like $3 from Home Goods.
Yeah.
And then I got a few different ones that are the same, and then I got a big one that looks like a milk jar, and I put all my laundry stuff in it.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
then I have a scoop, and then you just turn it around, you know. And if you're gonna use whichever one, but we are really liking this Buff City soap. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yeah, I got it for my boys in their stockings for Christmas like a few years ago, and I could tell they were so not impressed with my gift until they started using it.
Oh no, they are.
And then they absolutely loved it. And they were in college at the time, like away from home. And they really didn't appreciate it until they started using it. And they're, Mom, that stuff was the best, you know.
Blake told Derek about it.
Yeah, my son.
Yeah, Ashley's son Blake told my husband about it. And if you know my husband, he's going to go into anything adventurous that he can. Like if he's never heard of it or doesn't know about it, and he'll buy it.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
There's a store here.
Yeah.
And it is not exactly where we live, but about 15 minutes from here. And I have bought it for people for
because it's just a little bit more expensive than what you get in the grocery store, and it's a treat.
It is such
it's
a
such a treat. So if someone bought that for me, I'd be so happy.
I know, such a treat.
Yeah.
So anyway, actually I will say that since it's different than yours, but I like my Thieves oil. But
all right, guys, we will be back on our next episode, and then eventually, I don't know if it'll be our next one, but we'll keep talking about the different seasons of parenting.
Yes. Yeah, different seasons of parenting.
Hopefully nobody's mad at us.
Yeah, you know, we could have done a whole entire episode on potty training.
Oh, that's true. We will.
Yeah, I don't know. Potty training about put me over the edge. But anyways, all right, ladies.
Bye.
Ladies and men.
Yeah.
Bye.